What's up everyone, it's Dave Atkinson here, and I want to give you 5 tips to better your punk rock drumming. Now I'm a huge fan of punk rock. I've been playing punk since I very first started the drums in the mid-90s, and I would play along to songs and bands like Blink-182, NoFX, Millencolin, Goldfinger, and the like. So this is not going to be a lesson on traditional punk like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, or the Clash. This is going to be more of a lesson focused on what I feel to be true punk. Hardcore punk, skate punk, where this style of punk, the songwriting has more emphasis on the rhythm rather than the melody. So in this lesson, I want to give you a few tips to align your practice and your focus to be able to play along to the songs you really want. With that all said, here are 5 tips to help your punk rock drumming. All right, so tip number 1, master your bass drum doubles. There is nothing more important to punk drumming than having a fast foot. Solve your bass drum problems and you'll solve your punk problems, I promise you that. So in order to play these speeds, you will most likely need to use a technique like the heel toe technique or the slide technique. Now, it really doesn't matter which one you choose. Both give you the same result, which is fast doubles. So just pick one that fits your style and go with it. Now, a good tip here, if you haven't chosen heel toe or slide, I generally find if you're a drummer who plays heel up, you're generally going to want to go with the slide technique. Now, if you're a drummer that plays heels down, you're most likely going to find heel toe a little bit easier. Either way, pick one, find a Drumeo lesson on the specifics, and learn it. This tip is more about the importance of having a solid foot so you can shift your practice and spend a good majority of your practice time on your bass drum doubles. All right, that being said, I play the slide technique and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what it is. It might be one that you like to try for yourself. So basically, the slide technique is a way to get 2 strokes for the price of 1. I'll give you an example here. Now you might recognize that beat. That's a standard punk rock beat, which we're going to learn. But notice the motion of my foot. I wasn't actually playing 2 notes. I was actually sliding my foot up the pedal. And that's why it's called the slide technique. But really quick, what I'm doing is the first stroke, I'm actually playing in the middle of the footboard, right around here. And I'm playing that with my toe. All right, this is a big misconception. Because I wear shoes, you can't really see what my toes are doing, but I'm actually hitting this pedal with my toe just like this. Okay, the next step is the most important. What you're going to want to do is you want to lift your toes up a little bit and horizontally move your foot upwards towards the pedal. When that pedal is coming back, the ball of your foot is going to hit the pedal and you're going to get the second stroke like this. Now this technique takes a lot of time. Trust me, be patient, it's well worth the wait. And if the slide technique just isn't for you, go and check out Jared's lesson on the heel toe. That might be down your alley and you might love it. Either way though, make sure you focus on these doubles. It is going to make punk way easier for you. And I promise you, once you get this down, you're gonna have no problem learning the rest of it. Tip number 2 is learn these 2 beats. Now, while there are many different beats and variations used in punk, at the core, there are really only 2 that you'll keep hearing consistently. And these are the ones you want to focus on. The first beat you have heard many times before, and I just demonstrated in the previous tip. It is the core punk rock beat, in my opinion. This is what it sounds like. So as you can see, you kind of have to learn this beat. It's the quintessential punk rock beat. And if you can master it and own it, you can literally hang with almost any punk rock band. So let me teach you the beat real quick. Like I said, it's super simple. The challenge is the speed of it. You're playing quarter notes on the hi-hat, snare drum on the 2 and 4, and your bass drums on the 1, the 3, and the and of 3, just like this. Now, of course, Most of you out there can do that, but can you play it this fast? That's the challenge, and that's where you need to have your bass drum doubles going. But the nice thing is once you get that beat down, you're off to the races. Let's move on to the second beat. The second beat is actually very similar, but there's a bit of a space in between those two bass drums. Now, even though this beat is super close, they have completely different feels and is littered through so many punk rock songs, but probably most notably in Meloncolin's recent release, Nothing. Here's how it sounds. So this groove, quarter notes on the hi-hat, 2 and 4 in the snare, the bass drum's the only thing that's different. You're gonna play on the 1, then you're gonna play on the and of 2 and the and of 3. Okay, it sounds like this really slow. Now it sounds pretty simple slow, but here it is fast. Now, it's not enough to just know these beats. To get you to punk rock drummer level, you need to be able to use these beats musically. And yes, you can be musical with punk, and by using some of these simple phrasing and orchestration tips, these beats can unlock thousands of ways to use them musically. So the first thing you want to do is put these two beats together, which will actually create a 2-bar phrase. And you hear this all over the place in punk, and it's actually a real creative way to change things up a bit or to better align with maybe the guitar phrase that's going on. So if you got the first beat, which is, and you got the second beat, which is, let's put them together in a 2-bar phrase. So 1 bar of the first groove, 1 bar of the second groove. Sounds like this. Right? Now it's starting to sound more punk. The second way to use these beats is actually play almost like a polka beat in front of them to create either a 4-bar or a 2-bar phrase. And this is actually an endurance tip too, because if you're not really fast with your foot, playing that polka groove instead, and then playing the double for like maybe 1 bar or 2 bars here and there, it's a great way to give yourself a break. Now the polka beat, I don't need to teach it, it's just this. First groove everyone learns, but if you play it in front of maybe beat number 1, it sounds like this. And at punk rock tempo. Or let's try playing the polka beat in front of the second groove, but let's play it for 3 bars and then 1 bar of that second punk rock beat. Sounds like this, real slow. All right, the third way you can use these grooves to your advantage is to stop playing them just on the hi-hats. Play them on the toms, play them on the crash, play them on the ride. Now, that might seem obvious, but in punk, drummers love to go to the toms for a bridge. And it's usually the same groove that you're playing in the chorus or in the verse. It just sounds so much cooler on the toms. So don't just practice those 2 grooves on your hi-hats, practice them on the toms, the ride and crash as well. All right, now the fourth way you can use these grooves to your advantage is to play them in half time. Now this works especially well for the first groove, and you'll hear it all the time in bands like NoFX. And usually what they do is they just play halftime for a bit and then just go right back up to that same speed as before. It's really effective, and it's a great way to work on your heel toe or slide technique as well. Sounds like this. master the reverse shank tip, and the regular shank tip for that matter. Now, how many of you have hurt yourselves trying to keep up on the hi-hats to a punk rock song that's like 200 BPM? It is brutal. And just as the heel toe or slide technique is a must-know for your feet, the shank tip is a must-know for your hands. And not just the traditional shank tip that you might already know, but what I like to call the reverse shank tip, where your focus seems to be on the upbeat rather than the downbeat. So learning this is going to save you a ton of energy and allow you to play full songs without hurting yourself. But before I get into the reverse shank tip, let's quickly talk about the shank tip. Now, I'm not going to go into this too much in this lesson because Todd Zuckerman has taught a full lesson on this in Drumeo that is on YouTube for you to check out, and he's going to do a way better job of explaining it than me. But in short, what you really want to do is start by striking your hi-hat with the shank of the stick, which is why it's called the shank tip. Now, when you're lifting your hand back up, ready to stroke again, you're going to hit the hi-hats with the tip, just like that. That's why it's called the shank tip. In motion, it looks like this. Now just watch my wrist, watch my arm, and listen to how many strokes I'm getting. I'm really getting 2 strokes for the price of 1. But when you're getting to faster tempos where you're not really playing 8 notes anymore on the hats, you're at quarter notes on the hats, and you're playing at 200 beats per minute, the shank tip really doesn't work too well. This is where I bring in the reverse shank tip. This is where instead of hitting on the downbeat with your shank, you're actually going to hit on the 2 or the upbeat or the backbeat with the shank. So this would mean the 1 and 3 are the tip and the 2 and 4 are the shank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now in context to a beat, it looks like this. I'm going to play it really slow for you and speed it up, and hopefully you'll see what I mean by the power of the reverse shank tip. So you notice I was not able to get those speeds unless I went into something like that, and it really allowed me to focus not only on the backbeat. That backbeat has to be strong, and if you're kind of tipping on the 2 and your hand's coming down there, it's going to jumble you up. But it also preserves my energy, allowing me to play for a lot longer and stopping me from feeling any pain in your joints, because if you're like me, when I was starting out, you're going to feel it right in the joint of your thumb, and it's just going to be painful, and you're not going to be able to keep up. So take your time, check out Todd Zuckerman's lesson on the shank tip, and try to incorporate the reverse shank tip into your punk rock drumming. It's going to open up so many doors for you. Trick your endurance and focus on the backbeat. Now we just talked about one way, the reverse shank tip, to trick your endurance and to get more energy throughout the song, but there are other things you can do as well. And remember, punk rock is all about the backbeat. That's what everyone in the audience is moshing to. That keeps the energy flowing. That's what really drives the song. So if there's one thing you should not mess up or not lose, it's that backbeat. So if you're finding yourself getting tired and you're losing energy and you have no more to give, do not let your backbeat falter. So I'm going to give you a couple tips here that'll hopefully help keep that backbeat there and conserve your energy. So the first thing is give your leading hand a break. Do not feel you need to play every single note on your hi-hat or your ride cymbal or crash for that matter. Take liberties. If the song's at 200 beats per minute and 8 notes is too much, skip a few notes or use 2 hands where you may need only 1. All right, so let me give you an example here. I do this all the time when I'm playing a groove and I have to play crash cymbals for shots within the song. Now, if I'm playing quarter notes with that fast punk groove like this, now at that tempo, it's fine. I have more than enough time to hit those crashes, but watch what happens when I start playing up the tempo. That's tough, and if you play a whole set like that, you're gonna run out of energy. So watch what I do, and I encourage you to try the same thing. I literally take my hand off and I give it some time to play that crash. Sometimes I take a half bar off. At the tempo that we're playing, and it really doesn't matter, it doesn't change the sound too much. These cymbals are all washing out anyway, so no one's gonna notice. Check this out instead. But the more you practice it, the more you'll find other liberties you can take within your playing, even in fills, where you can take your hand away and buy a little bit of energy, buy a little bit of time, and just let your nerves calm down. All right, the second way you can trick your endurance is to half the amount of notes you play. Not just take a break for the crashes or take a break before a fill. Actually, half the amount of times you're playing on the hi-hats or the ride or the tom. A great example is that fast punk rock beat that we already learned. I am going to play with just hi-hats on the 2 and 4, basically following my snare. Now this is great for those who may not be able to play the reverse shank tip yet, or for those who just can't keep up to speed. You can still play along with your favorite songs by doing this trick. Okay, it's the punk rock beat, but I'm literally playing my hands in unison only for the backbeat. Sounds like this. I'll play it slow and then I'll speed it up. All right, so you see there I even opened up my hi-hats, and at that tempo you can barely even tell that I was only playing on the 2 and the 4, and it's a great tip to trick your endurance, buy yourself some more energy. When you're on the toms, one last little piece of advice I'd give you is you don't have to play every single tom hit either. There's a lot of punk songs where the bridge lives on the tom, something like this. Oh, that gets tiring. And you don't want to lose that energy, so a great tip is to kind of turn it into like a linear beat. Half the notes you're playing on your hands and use your bass drum to fill in that other tom, something like this. Now, if you don't think the pros do this, here's a clip from one of my favorite punk drummers, Smelly, Eric Sandin, from NoFX, doing these exact things to keep up with this 18-minute monster of a song that is an endurance killer.
Or maybe tear it apart. Start with the assumption that a million people are smart. Smarter than one.
So even Smelly from NoFX does these things, and I totally understand why. I've seen them play so many times, and the fact that he can keep up with an hour-and-a-half set at that much energy at his age is unbelievable. All right, so these tips were all things I wish I knew when I started playing punk rock. I spent many years frustrated thinking I need to play every note, or I spent years focusing on the wrong things in my practice room, so I really hope they help you out. And as big of a punk fan I am surprised at how little punk drumming lessons there are out there. So let me know in the comments below if you found this useful and if you want to see more punk from Drumeo. And of course, selfishly, if you know Smelly, Eric Sandin from NoFX, or if he's watching this, please encourage him to come out to Drumeo. I'm actually part of NoFX Patreon, and I had the opportunity to ask if he would ever come to Drumeo, and he gave me the most punk answer I could imagine.
Smelly, do you ever do Drumeo? I don't even know what Drumeo is. I'm not a drum nerd, so the answer is no.
So if you are watching this, Smelly, please come to Drumeo so we can hear from one of the most influential punk drummers of our time. Hope you found this lesson useful, and I'll see you all later.